The human body is capable of so many truly incredible, amazing things. So why is it that so many of us spend all of our time at the gym focusing on just one aspect of performance? Why stand on the spot curling day after day when you could run, climb, jump, swim, roll, balance, and do so many other things? Why not explore what else you can do? If I had to succinctly describe my training style, I would say it's a combination of bodybuilding, powerlifting, calisthenics, kettlebell training, running, mobility training, movement training, isometrics, brain training, meditation, jump rope, martial arts. And I'm probably missing some as well. And if I'm being critical of myself, that sounds like an awful lot. And some people have commented and said to me, how can you juggle that many different training styles, and why would you want to? How can you make any meaningful progress? How can you make any gains when you're trying to juggle that many things? Shouldn't I just pick a training style and stick with it, dedicate myself to that so I can become as good as possible? And I would argue, no actually. In fact, I'd flip that question around to you and say, how is it that you're not training like this? Because the more I research, the more people I work with, the more I think about it, the more sense this kind of training makes. And I genuinely believe that this style of training, this hybrid training, will not only get you your very best performance, but even your best physique. So I'm going to try and change your mind and explain to you how you can do the same. So to me, training like this is actually really obvious. Once you start thinking outside the paradigm of fitness culture, of what we've been told is the normal way to train, it actually just makes all the sense in the world. Think of fitness as a diet and all the things you do as parts of your diet. So weightlifting is part of your diet, running is part of your diet. You wouldn't just eat one food group. You wouldn't just eat protein and say, hey, that's all the food I need. I mean, some people do. I don't personally think it's a good idea. You wouldn't just eat vegetables. You wouldn't just eat carbs. Likewise, you wouldn't go to a garage with your car and say, look, I really want to have the best wheels possible. Don't worry that the engine doesn't work. Just work on those wheels, make sure they're really nice. What I'm saying is, if you want to take care of anything, you can't just choose one area to take care of. So if you're going to the gym and training just for maximum strength, but you're ignoring things like your mobility and your endurance, well then that's not really health and fitness. You're not really taking care of your body in a comprehensive manner. Sure, you're going to be really, really strong, and you might be stronger than you would be if you spread your time out across all these different areas, but is that really the most important thing in the world? And this isn't just me picking on strength athletes. The same thing goes if you only train endurance or only train mobility. I mean, it's great to be really flexible and it's great to be able to run long distances, but unless that's your job and you're an athlete, and even then you do need to think about the other aspects of your health and performance just for longevity. But if that's not your job, then sacrificing everything else in pursuit of one single goal, no matter how impressive, that's not really taking care of your body to the fullest degree possible. And I think the internet has a lot to answer for here. I think we see people online doing things like incredible bench presses or incredible squats, and we think that's the standard and that's what we need to achieve. Those people in that isolated moment, of course, seem extremely fit. They seem like specimens of physical performance, and they are in many ways. But we shouldn't necessarily be trying to emulate them because that's only one aspect of performance. And if we emulate them at the expense of everything else, well then we're hurting ourselves in the long run, because at some point that mobility is going to catch up with you. If you can't get into a deep squat comfortably, a deep resting squat, that's going to create tightness in your lower back. It's going to create tightness in your knees and your hips. That's going to catch up with you at some point and you won't be able to move as well. Likewise, you might find yourself getting worn out when you try and climb the stairs, and this could eventually lead to heart problems or other issues, maybe sleep apnea, who knows. Likewise, you might see somebody doing a perfect planche push-up on Instagram and think that looks incredible, but what you don't realize is that they've made themselves intentionally light. They've neglected to train their legs, potentially, not everyone. They've neglected to train their legs so that they can keep them nice and light, so they can get into that position. And they might be ignoring, again, things like their endurance because there just isn't enough space in their program. They need all that recovery time to be that strong for that one move. Again, this isn't everybody, but the point is that if you're only focusing on one thing, then you're neglecting everything else. So we need to be okay with not being the best, and that means not comparing ourselves to everybody on social media. I mean, look at me, I can do a handstand, But when I do it, my arms aren't perfectly straight over my head. I can bench a really large amount, but that's largely genetic, and I can't squat and deadlift a really huge amount. I've actually got back issues, which I'm recovering from, so I don't deadlift or squat all that much at all. My martial arts are getting better, but they're not incredible. They're better than the average Joe. Same thing goes for my jump rope. But it's okay, because I don't need to be the best, because I'm not competing with anyone. I'm just trying to be the most all-rounded athlete. And this is the way we're supposed to perform. Because in the real world, we need a mixture of different abilities. Consider pretty much any task you might ever have to do, whether you're helping someone move house, whether you're farming, whether you're doing manual labor. All of these things require a mixture of strength, that's maximum strength to be able to lift things up and carry them, strength endurance to go that distance with those things, then do it over and over again, strength at different angles because you're digging and twisting your body, grip strength and a certain amount of mental grit. And having mobility will help you to do those things even better. In a fight or in most sports, you're going to need a combination of explosiveness and endurance to perform well. And actually goes even beyond that, because when you get out of the sterile environment of the gym, most activities, most single movements even, require multiple different energy systems and multiple different types of strength. Consider lifting something really heavy and carrying it. That's all you have to do. For example, lifting a big rock off the ground. You're going to need a lot of max strength, or at least some explosive strength, to initially hoik that thing up onto your lap. You might perform this more like a powerlifter or an Olympic lifter, but if it's a rock or if it's a bag of sand, then you have to do it at awkward angles, meaning you can't just rely on that one linear plane of motion. From there, you then need to get it into position, again using lots of different muscle groups at different angles, and then walk with it, requiring endurance and hip stability, and then put it down. This is just one movement. Likewise, rock climbing. You're going to do things like dynos, where you're explosively launching yourself in the air, but at the same time, you're going to be pulling yourself close into the ground, utilizing grip strength and lat strength. And you're going to be trying to strategically position yourself so that you can catch your breath by resting a lot of your weight on your legs or taking as much load off as possible by propping yourself up against the rock. But there will be a lot of endurance involved here. These single activities require a combination of different skills, a combination of different angles. You just don't get that with linear training at the gym. That's where combining these different tools, things like kettlebells, things like sandbags, alongside things like endurance training, powerlifting, and more conventional bodybuilding, will get you the kind of performance that's actually useful. You won't be as impressive as someone else on Instagram, you won't reach those upper echelons, but by having a spread of abilities, you'll be far more adaptable and you'll be using your body more the way it's supposed to be used. What combining lots of different training methods does is it gives you loads more to learn. It means you're constantly learning, and when you're in that learning state, you just get far greater gains. You're in a more plastic state and you're triggering more plasticity. You know, like an old dog can't learn new tricks. That's only true if you're kind of out of practice of learning new tricks. If all you're doing is the same movement over and over and over and over again, you become rigid and set in your ways, and it's hard for you to learn new things. If you're constantly experimenting and you're constantly quite bad at stuff because you're learning new skills, then you stay plastic and you find it easier to learn new stuff. And why put all that effort in to go from 99% brilliant at something to 100% brilliant when you could go from 20% brilliant to 75% brilliant? And that's just a far greater gain. You get diminishing returns the better you get. Something to think about when you're watching people on social media who seem to be perfect. You know, they never put a foot wrong, never injure themselves, they never struggle to lift something, they're never looking bad, is that either they're not being entirely genuine with you, not showing the learning process, not showing their mistakes or their off days, or they're not trying anything new. And these are probably the same people who are going to be like, cardio, why do I need cardio? Which is just an ego defense mechanism when you've invested all of your life into lifting really, really heavy. And something else I'd like to say is that because I train like this and run a channel about it, I've had all of these amazing adventures and done all this really cool stuff. You know, I've done martial arts with Grant, we've sparred on a hill with a drone flying around us. I've done parkour with Liam. I've swum in freezing cold water and sat in the sauna with the bodyweight warrior. I've bench pressed double bodyweight. I've run the London Marathon. I once ran the equivalent of 2 marathons over the course of 3 days. I smashed my wrist to pieces trying to do stunts like Jackie Chan. As part of the rock climbing club at university, I did capoeira for a year and then performed in front of an audience. I trained Tai Chi. I won Bodybuilder of the Month on teenbodybuilding.com. I've trained with brain training tools designed for athletes and military personnel. Competed at a county level in sprinting and hurdles. Competed in inter-club competitions for karate. I've hiked up mountains. All of these adventures and cool stories and things are expressions of fitness. Just powerlifting, just jogging don't prepare you for that diverse range of activity. And I want to keep doing this as I get older. Probably partly because of the way I train. I didn't win any of those competitions, but because of the way I train, I was able to compete in all of them. By the way, for those of you saying, why don't you join a boxing club, etc., apart from the fact that I really find it hard to get out of the house on a regular basis as a parent, it's also just because I'm not a joiner. All these things I prefer to do solo if I can, and that's also part of the ethos of the channel, just to show that you don't have to do something because someone gave you permission or helps you to do it. You can just go out there and do it. If you're going to be training with all these different styles, then you need adaptable clothing that can keep up with you, like today's sponsor, Barbell Apparel. I'm wearing Barbell Apparel in a lot of the B-roll that's been playing during this video. You can see their shorts and their t-shirt, and their stealth hoodie, which I just received, I think is now my very favourite hoodie, and I'm someone who wears a lot of hoodies. Barbell Apparel's clothing is great because it's so comfortable, but also flexible and flattering. So if you're going to spend your time building a great physique, then of course you want to show it off. And at the same time, it's going to be comfortable during your workouts, not get in the way and not get damaged. And in fact, if you gain or lose weight, then Barbell Apparel will replace an item of clothing with a different size for you, no questions asked. Likewise, if you tear the clothing during a tough workout, they have the same policy. So you really can rest assured that this clothing is going to be able to survive whatever you throw at it, and you're going to look great in the process. In fact, the shorts I'm wearing in these videos are actually called the Adapt Short, and they claim to be the toughest workout shorts ever made. They do feel really tough, but also comfortable. They're made from a really nice fabric. The list of features just goes on. They're made from an abrasion-resistant fabric. They've got dual hidden inside waistband pockets, waterproof zippers, integrated towel loop, structured waistband, modern curved hemline, lifetime replacement guarantee, and size exchange guarantee. I really like them. It's time I wore more shorts at the gym because I'm tired of getting sweaty legs. So check them out, the link is in the description down below. And if you use code BUYNEAR at checkout, then you'll also get a free shirt, any shirt, and this can include the performance shirts, thrown in with your purchase as long as it's over $98. Thanks again to Barbell Apparel for sponsoring this video, and now on with the show. And I'm feeling it in everything I do, from squatting more easily down when I'm tying my lace or picking something up off the floor, to just having the energy to like do a random roll or something. I'm starting to incorporate more tumbling and acrobatics into my training as well. Just experimenting with different things and having that freedom to do so, because I'm not trying to be the very best at one thing, gives me way more opportunity to train and to make it fun. And this is where the good news comes in, because when you do that, you also get a better physique. And here's why. Because there are many different stimuli that affect hypertrophy. We all know about the three big ones. You've got mechanical tension, we've got muscle damage, we've got metabolic buildup. So mechanical tension just means a lot of weight on you, so your max strength, lift something really heavy, and it sends signals to the body to release hormones, anabolic hormones, to encourage muscle growth. You've got the muscle damage, where creating tiny tears in the muscle fiber causes them to then be rebuilt thicker, making you stronger and increasing the size of your muscles. And then you've got metabolic stress, which is the buildup of metabolites, all in the muscle, which occurs when you're using it for an extended period of time. And this also stimulates growth due to a cascade of hormones. As a result, get a lot of mechanical tension from something like powerlifting. You get a lot of muscle damage from bodybuilding, but bodybuilding and forms of strength endurance, such as kettlebell training, will also flood the muscles and keep them full of blood, which will create that metabolic stress. So what you can do is combine the metabolic stress with the muscle damage, with the mechanical tension, and that way you get three different types of stimulus, all trying to trigger the muscle to grow. And if you're someone who responds better to certain types of stimuli than others, then whatever the case, you're going to benefit from this kind of training because you're covering all your bases. But it goes even deeper than that too, because when you do strength endurance type training, so that's bodybuilding with higher reps, or even things like battle rope or kettlebell swings, when you pool that blood in the muscle, it also triggers angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels, supplying muscles with more blood, not only in the short term, but in the long term. You're chronically increasing blood flow and the supply of nutrients and metabolites to the muscles, allowing them to recover better and allowing them to be flooded with more blood, creating more growth. Combine that with an increased range of motion that you get from mobility training, and you can create more muscle damage, creating fuller, bigger looking muscles, Combine that with the awkward angles that you get from kettlebell swings or calisthenics, and you're going to build muscles that otherwise get overlooked, things like the obliques, things like the serratus. Combine that with endurance, and you're building up your work capacity, not only again supplying your muscles with even more blood and recovery opportunity, but also improving your ability to train for longer and harder, creating more opportunity for growth. All these things work together in unison to create a bigger and more well-rounded physique. And because you're combining that with more endurance training, you're going to have less body fat, meaning that your muscles look more defined, giving that bodybuilder aesthetic. Again, if you want to be as massive as possible, if you want to be a Ronnie Coleman, then no, running isn't going to serve you in that. You're going to lose some of your muscle mass because running is catabolic. There's no getting around that. But again, I don't think that should be the goal for most people. Do you want to be as massive as humanly possible, or do you want to have a pleasing appearance where you've got a good balance of muscle, low body fat, and no lagging areas that are left behind, making you look out of proportion? And of course, all this brings me to the obvious, unavoidable question of how do you juggle all this stuff and your recovery without burning out and while still making some meaningful progress in any of these areas at all? And the answer is quite simple, because I'm actually not training more than most people. In fact, I don't train that many days. It's often 4 days a week. I have a lot of rest days, but on those rest days, I'm still moving around. What I do is I simply treat each of these different modalities as different sets of exercises targeting specific muscle groups and movement patterns. So to put this more simply, whereas a bodybuilder might go to the gym and do bench press, pec flies, dumbbell press, incline press, and then that's their chest day, I might just do bench press, but then I'm also going to do some handstand practice, and then I'm going to do some dips maybe, and maybe I'm going to finish on the heavy bag as a kind of cardio finisher. All those things are pushing movements in the same plane. They're working the same muscle groups. So I'm still hammering those same muscles, I'm still fatiguing them and then recovering and fatiguing them, but by training the different energy systems, I'm doing this whilst also getting a host of other benefits as well. Likewise for my legs, I'm not just going to do, heavy squats, heavy deadlift, leg extension, leg press. Instead, I'm going to do things like kettlebell swings, kicks practice, which is actually surprisingly effective at building your muscles, jump rope, heavy squats, pistol squats or sissy squats. And that combination again is training a range of different energy systems, hitting all the different muscle groups in the legs in just the same way, but instead of picking lots of exercises from a single training modality, I'm spreading it out and getting all those different benefits. And you can even program these as single sets. So another method I like to use is a mechanical drop set, where I'll start with a really heavy exercise like heavy bench press, but when I can't do any more of that, I drop to just doing high rep push-ups. And then I might drop to just holding myself in position, or even doing an overcoming isometric at the start of it all. So I'm moving through the energy systems. I'm going from heavy and few reps to light and lots of reps. And I'm doing it, training lots of different muscle fibers, giving myself the ability to move through those different areas whilst also causing a massive amount of mechanical tension, muscle damage, and metabolic stress. That's the system I use in my ebook and training program, Super Functional Training 2.0. Lots of people have had a lot of luck with that. So if you want to try it out for yourself and get a program that combines all these different things in an easy to digest manner, then check out the link in the description down below. You need to be efficient with your training. So I know that by doing a few heavy bench presses and lots of push-ups, I'm going to get everything I want in terms of max strength for the pecs and a bit of hypertrophy. But it's about going to failure each time and really putting that effort, and then in that short amount of space, I've done what I need to. You do also need to think ahead and not fatigue yourself too much with each workout, because you're going to have another heavy one coming up soon. And then when I do this, again, it's just not to do too much. The powerlifting is by far the most fatiguing for the central nervous system, so I just keep this fairly minimal, and I call it building the power base. And then everything else is kind of added in around on top of that. But again, because I'll be hitting the pecs in other ways with other modalities, I don't need to worry as much about going all out on the pecs over and over again, multiple times a week. But again, it's also about not needing to progress as quickly, as impressively in any single area, but instead looking at the body's performance as a whole and being satisfied with that, with knowing that you're moving better, moving stronger, and just feeling great and having fun in the process. So that's how I train with bodybuilding, powerlifting, kettlebells, calisthenics, movement training, brain training, isometrics, and a whole host of other modalities all at once, while still managing progress and recovery. And it's why I recommend everybody do the same. And I do think it will lead to your very best physique and performance yet. Let me know in the comments down below if you've been doing this as well, what other modalities you like to bring into the mix. I really want to start doing rock climbing on a more consistent basis, and maybe even swimming as well. And that's something I'm going to be looking at more over the coming year on this channel. Either way, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.